everyone. I'm Naum Mikhailovsky, CEO and co-founder of Furious Avocado. We are a hyper-casual development studio located in Skopje, Macedonia, and we are the creators of the tie-dye hyper-casual hit, which just recently hit 100 million downloads.
Alina, do you want to go next?
Yes, sure. Hi, everybody. Thanks, Martin, for a nice topic to be part of. I'm Alina. I'm doing business development for almost 10 years, and I've been part of various gaming verticals, including game outsourcing, game marketing. And the recent years, I was busy with hyper casual, working at BoomBit, Mooney, and also being an independent advisor in terms of investment, and also helping some small teams in hyper casual to find a good deal with publishers. So I basically was on both sides, and I'm happy to be part of this curious discussion.
Cool. John, do you want to go next?
Hey Martin, hey everyone. Yeah, I'm John. I'm VP of Publishing at BoomBit. We do a range of free-to-play games, so like Hunt Royale. I wish we did Hunt Royale. Yeah, we do a nice mix of free-to-play games, idle, hyper-casual. We just set up a new division actually, Boom Hits, focusing on hyper-casual. I spent 2 years in Paris helping build out Oma Games, and also an active investor in not just hyper casual, really anything mobile games, from like idle, PvP, just done a Roblox studio. So yeah, can approach this with my publishing hat on, but also as an active investor in studios as well.
That's what we like. And then Gökhan, do you want to do a quick intro?
Yeah, I'm Gökhan. I'm head of marketing at S Games. S Games is developing a lot of hyper casual and casual games right now. And that's all.
Cool. Okay, so let's, well, actually, just very, very quickly from me, I'm Martin McMillan. I'm the founder of Pollen VC. We provide credit facilities to game developers to help them scale through paid acquisition. It just so happens that hyper casual is a particularly good use case for our model. So we work with both both studios and publishers, sitting a little bit behind the scenes, but providing some of that capital that is required to blow them up the charts. So let's get started in terms of VC investment in hyper casual studios, hyper casual developers. Obviously, there's been a couple of kind of big rounds. You know, Dream raised a 50 million round. There's been some other ones. I wonder, John, you see a lot of this kind of stuff, just in terms of any sort of tips and trends you're seeing from the VC community, looking at particularly hyper casual as a genre. Are they jumping into it, or are they sort of pulling back from it? I don't know. What are your kind of views and what you're seeing?
Yeah, I think generally VCs are. I mean, look, they all have very different ways that they approach investments, and I think hyper casual. You know, there's a couple that will be announced soon, but generally for them to invest in a hyper casual studio, it's kind of no different to any other genre. They're looking for teams that have got experience with, you know, live products. What I mean by that is people that have basically published 1, 2, 3 games. So it kind of validates the team and the process. So they're typically ones that attract that initial interest. But I think from a couple that I'm seeing, that the sort of bigger interest is from VCs in particular is those studios that then can successfully apply what they've learned in hyper casual, the ideation process, the speed of testing, and drive that out into other free to play genres. So like idle, merge, hyper idle, casual. But I think there are also some VCs when it comes to studios that you know, steer away from hyper casual, but I think actually because it's a bit of a misunderstanding to them of really how hyper casual games work versus being very comfortable in your traditional, like, you know, AAA games or IP based games.
Cool, thank you. So Naum, you were kind of nodding there around the genre change type thing, using hyper casual as a springboard. We've seen, I think, well, we've spoken before, but the you know, I've had a bunch of different conversations over the last few months, even people talking about, you know, how you can, exactly as John said, how you can use all like the really fast, rapid development, but basically use success in hyper casual to kind of build longer term franchises as well. Is that something that kind of resonates and so on with you?
Yeah, I absolutely agree with John on this one. You know, when we set off last year as a studio, we were on this crossroad where we want to go, whether we go into casual or hyper casual. Because as a studio, we came from the casual space. We didn't have any hyper casual experience at that point, but the hyper casual proved to be an amazing springboard, actually. You know, to for bootstrapping and to set us off on a path and give us this comfort. You know, expanding the studio. And now we are at that point where we are still going even stronger in hyper casual, but also we are branching one division of the studio now and going into casual waters. But also, as John says, our learnings from hyper casual and how now we can apply that on you know, the casual prototypes that we are working on are big deal. Not only that, now we are glued better as a team, and then we can you know, prototype more rapidly and experiment more rapidly. But also, for me personally, I'm coming from the game design space. The streamlining that you need to do in the hyper casual games, the simplicity, you know, to reach the audience, that's a great lesson that when applied to casual, it allows you to, you know, reach even to a wider audience. And I find myself now, for example, I'm hardcore AAA gamer, and when I play AAA games, I find myself thinking, oh, these guys have much to learn from casual and hyper casual games in terms of simplicity. Why is this so complicated? It needs to be more accessible, more approachable.
So it's almost like a boot camp in terms of, you know, doing things quickly, team cohesion, just like at hyperspeed, as opposed to, and I can think of many studios that we either know or have worked with that have just spent months or years developing things before they even sort of give it the first reveal. And then, you know, sometimes in the first reveal, no one wants it, right? So I think the whole industry's benefited from that, from that kind of, you know, fail fast, fail quickly, if you like, and learn how to, you know, sort of get your chops. Alina, you've been working with people looking to raise money, looking at the publisher or self-publish kind of, or raise investment type of thing. What have you been seeing recently in the market?
So basically what I see is quite interesting. I see a couple of things. First is that hyper casual is very easy step in opportunity to get to gaming. So I see so many new studios or solo developers popping up literally like every week. I'm not saying all of them are really gonna reach the top results. However, it's just impressive. I also see that personally, I believe that studios who do hyper casual, they don't necessarily look for like venture capital investment, like big investment, let's say a couple of millions or more. I think they sometimes are completely satisfied having their paper prototype model with publishers, and that's exactly what they want and they need. And this is giving them some freedom. They can also work with multiple publishers. They don't want to stick to one specific partner. Some of them, of course, do, but I think this is a very interesting mix. And personally, I believe that this is sort of already some sort of type of investment when we talk that there are some that there are partner publishers who actually pay and cover the burn rate for the studios. In this case, can we call this an investment? Sort of, yes. Of course, we're not talking about equity sharing and more, let's say, more in-depth relationship in this case. However, I like this type of things that I see, and I think it's opening the doors to a lot of developers who were not actually doing any kind of game development, but they can start achieving some results. Of course, it's a hard work, and of course, it has to be really focused on processes. And as guys mentioned previously, yes, hyper casual definitely gives this opportunity to understand how the testing works, how the ideation works, and the mixture of the genres is also given this sort of freedom. Again, I do feel a lot of tension and challenges currently happening, but I guess we can discuss that a little on the later stage of our conversation.
Cool. So yeah, so you see the bar is set pretty low then, right? It's not like I have to raise a bunch of money, then I can create a game. So I can do side projects. I can even take a little bit of money from some of the publishers to effectively pay to learn. And I guess the deal is that you're going to give them the first one or the first couple. And if you're successful, then you can kind of, evolve down the curve in terms of genres and stuff. So yeah, it's good to see that raising venture capital is not like a, in some ways as it was, you had to do that before you go and create games, whatever. It just lowers the bar. for everyone. And I guess Gurkan, in terms of like, a profligation of hyper casual studios, it's like there's something in the water in Turkey, right? In terms of the number of hyper casual studios that have sprung up, which is great. And I know from having talked to a bunch, these are not sort of normal traditional hardcore game guys that have been in gaming for years that have just switched genres. These are people, coming out of other, looking and seeing some of the incredible successes that Turkey's produced, and then being in a really great sort of aspirational way. It's like, okay, these guys have proved that that we can do it. So that's been, and I lose count of the number of kind of studios there. Maybe we can talk about just a little bit about your story and your fundraising and so on as well, because the seems to be there are people in two different camps, right? There are people who are sort of in iterating and doing things at a relatively low revenue level, and then there's you guys obviously who've got some great heritage and stuff in the space that have said, no, we're going to set out and do this properly. We're going to raise a decent chunk of money. So just in terms of, maybe you can give us a little kind of intro to the studio and the theses of what you're doing, and whether you raise money and deploy that money in creating your own games, or if you're looking to sort of create your own games and act as a hybrid publisher if you spot other ones. What the thesis is and the overall strategy is for you guys.
Yeah, recently we closed a seed round of funding from reputable investors, including NFX, Actera, Christian, and Alexis. Right now we have two studios, one focused on casual and one on hyper casual games. Our main focus is actually the casual hybrid puzzle game that we have been working on for a while. However, our hyper casual studio assisting the main studio in many aspects, like training talent, coming up with creative game mechanics, and marketing ideas, creating user base or something like that. Our casual studio is to release late summer this year, our new title, and the global launch is expected to early next year. So I may agree with you. Turkey has a lot of hyper casual game studios. But all of them are trying to build casual game too, and hyper casual studio is the first step for creating casual games, I think.
So it would be fair to say it's almost sort of like game dev university, right? You go into this kind of boot camp of doing things quickly, you fail fast and so on, and then you're able to take that knowledge and use it in different genres.
Yeah, definitely.
Cool. And then so in terms of like if you were in that sort of like really early stage now in terms of you're able to make games, you've got maybe a couple of like early pub success. I mean, do you go and raise venture capital? Is venture capital it always was the seen as the sort of like the panacea. Once you raise money, you're in just a different game. There seems to be a lot more kind of appetite from people now to not have to do that, or to put it off until maybe a later stage. Alina, you're speaking to, well, Alina and John probably, you're both speaking to people all the time that are early, sort of going through that decision. Should we raise, or should we work with, should we sort of continue work with publishers who are funding some of this stuff? What do you think the inflection point that someone says, what, screw it, I'm going to do this properly, I need to go and raise a bunch of money on the back of it, or whatever it might be? Is there sort of like a penny drop moment that says, no, I need to play in a different league now?
So from my perspective, I have experience working not only with hyper casual, but also with different platforms for guys looking for AAA, AA projects. And the difference I see here is that in that case, VC or fundraising is usually specifically for the project. It's a big project. It takes a few years to make it. It could be more or less, it could be mobile. It doesn't matter. It really is mixed. In terms of hyper casual, I don't see that much studios looking for VC or fundraising. I see mostly studios looking for covering the burn rate, or I don't know if they have other ambitions. In terms of hyper casual, I don't see that much, to be honest. And maybe it's also depends on the genre. So maybe there is someone already having some sort of investment and they do casual games or mid-core, and then they switch to something else like idle or merge. So yeah, I see this type of various things. Or for example, I could also see some sort of pivots when the studio was looking for investment, and then they got sticked with the publisher because he offered a really nice deal and support and user acquisition resources. And that's actually, it really depends on the goal. It really depends on like how powerful is the studio. Does the studio know how to do traffic acquisition? If we are talking about mobile, it's super competitive. If we are talking about the guys who know how to do that, then maybe it makes sense for them to do the fundraising with an investor. If they don't know, then that's maybe smart to go to a publisher, or to choose a couple of partners, which would make it way more complex. So yeah, that's the perspective I could mention.
Cool. John, you probably get more people than anyone through your door in terms of the early stage guys. What are any sort of trends that you see?
I think there's some pretty interesting models right now in hyper casual. So I think from some of the tier 1 studios, they're running some pretty cool academy programs. So they'll pay, and also outside of the payment, it's actual training. So for example, in Turkey, Gökhan and the team at Cappuccino Games, they've got the Cap Academy, and they've trained up a few studios, and also as part of that, they're open to investing in early stage studios. And one of those studios is now actively raising their pre-seed round. So I've seen that model in Turkey, in France. There's a couple of those in Asia. So I think that's kind of cool, as this sort of like early stage approach. I've seen 4 recent studios who haven't published a game, but they've decided they want a little bit of freedom from publishers. So they've been raising sort of like $250 pre-seed round for around 20-25% equity in their studio. But generally, that kind of inflection point tends to be when they've published at least kind of 1 or 2 games, and they've got that ambition now that they really want to kind of basically self-publish, right? And or, as I said earlier, push into other game genres. And that's when there's a couple now raising around $3 to $4 million for sort of, the valuation varies, and valuations in hyper casual are pretty difficult compared to other game genres. But of course, the sort of the middle ground is, my advice to early stage studios is always the same, which is your goal is to give away as little equity as possible in your business. And as Alina mentioned, really there's so many hyper casual publishers out there now with war chests of cash that you should be able to fund your business or your burn rate without actually giving away any equity. And of course, if you like the idea of self-publishing and you've actually got expertise and some tech in that area, then of course, like now versus when hyper casual started, you also have the prospect of UA funding, right? So again, I really don't understand when I get pitched for investment in hyper casual studios and I see a line item that's like $500,000 of UA funding. It kind of surprises me, because there's no need to give away $500,000 equity in your company when you could basically go look at UA funding or use credit line with the networks, for argument's sake. So bottom line is, if you're a hyper casual studio right now, there are so many options for you to fund your studio. Yeah.
No, it seems like definitely. I really like this idea about the academies and so on as well. They're paying it forward. The rising tide sort of floats all the ships, if you like. So the level of knowledge is just a great thing. So in terms of Noam, in terms of your business, then, in terms of, obviously you had some great success working with the publisher. How are you thinking about sort of future projects that you guys are working on?
Well, from our experience, I mean, we are really, happy with where we are and with the partnership that we have in hand. But I just want to go back to something that John said about, the development studios, actually hyper casual development studios who, offer equity. And I would add there that probably the root cause for this one would be the inexperience, because these are small teams, and mainly teams, composed of developers in most cases, or then some art teams slapped on top of that. And we are mostly speaking about teams that are not really, experienced in business. So without much knowledge, actually, if they should give up equity or not. Fortunately for us, when we started doing hyper casual, we had only 2 failed prototypes before we got to tie-dye. So we never even, really got to the point of thinking how will we fund ourselves further. I mean, we were ready to be self-funded for 1 year, at least, let's say a year and a half, depending if we, increase our monthly burn rate. But probably, we never got to that point. But I will just make an educated guess actually to what John said, that maybe that part comes from the giving up the equity from inexperience and not knowing actually the hyper casual models and the way that the publisher supports you, as Alina said, which is really and was crucial for us.
So what? Alina, go.
Yeah, sorry, Martin. I just had a question that popped up in my head, because it's an interest in what you mentioned now in terms of what exactly could be that investor or VC can deliver. Because a lot of developers were asking me like we want to have a partner who is not only about money. This is very cool point. So maybe you guys can also play around this a little bit. Now, for example, since you have good interest in case study, this is cool to understand. Like, okay, publisher is the UA and money, investor is not only money. There has to be some sort of network or expertise or stuff like that. So it would be great to hear on that. Sorry, Martin, for interruption.
Sorry, can you just reiterate on that? I kind of lost you for a moment.
I was saying that I'm curious to understand what exactly is that value that investor can deliver besides money. So I was curious to hear anybody's perspective on that.
Yeah. Well, investor-wise speaking, I mean, it depends from what space the investor is coming from, right? And we've been approached by investors, but that had, especially after tie-dye, but investors that had, zero expertise in gaming. So what could be, what for can we hope in that marriage? Probably not much. Whether going the route with partnering with publishers who support you per prototype, for example, or with guaranteed monthly minimum, is actually, in my opinion, the way to go for hyper casual studios, because at the same time you have a partner that can coach you in this space and from whom you can learn a lot. Of course, you learn from your failures, right? But the publisher works with a big range of development studios, and they test much more than the studios themselves test, let's say, on a monthly basis, right? So now you have this coaching, you have this expertise and guidance that can steer you in the right direction, while also helping you financially along the way to help with your monthly burn. I don't know if that answers your question.
It feels to me like it's almost like you hear there's obviously some great publisher stories, and then you hear some less good publisher stories. It's almost like there would be the industry would benefit from a sort of like a how-to, like a playbook of publishing deals in terms of the things, for early sort of more inexperienced people, maybe, just so you don't get set off on the right foot. So let's say you sign a deal, but it's an exclusive deal. You can never take it back, and they've got a right to buy you or something like that. They can see some massive cash cow, and just from kind of some young and inexperienced guys who happen to have a massive hit, that then they don't really realize the value that they could have or should have done. So it's almost like there's sort of and you see a bunch of different people like in the venture world and stuff now being like super transparent, putting, I came across a VC the other day was putting their operating manual on as a GitHub document, for example, just in the interest of just complete transparency. And it feels like there's a, that would maybe be a useful kind of working doc, whatever, somehow. Gökhan, how are they doing this in Turkey? How are you kind of how are the smaller studios being kind of supported, if you like, and encouraged, and what's the path for a young studio that decides they want to enter the hyper casual space?
I think you should unmute yourself, Gökhan.
There we go.
It's not working.
It's fine now. Yeah, it's all good.
Sorry for that. It is not working for a moment. For Turkey, firstly, when hyper-casual studios started their journey, they wanted to work with publishers first. So they wanted to gain that money with their game, with their title, not with VC. Yeah, I can say that.
Do you find that the market, like the larger guys, are supporting the smaller guys and bringing through the next generation of developers?
Yeah.
Cool. So next thing we had on the list that we're going to talk about in terms of, so for studios that are wanting to work with a publisher, how do you get the right sort of fit? So you've decided, okay, I'm not going to go and raise venture capital. You know, I know it can be very, very, like, I guess the publishers are always in touch with everyone all the time because there's lots come through. So how do you, because Alina, you've been advising people about, you know, who may have maybe multiple publishing offers and so on, but it's a very fast moving thing, right? It's not like it's not like where you get a term sheet and you sit and think about it and noodle on it for a month, right? So how does someone sort of go out, have those conversations sort of simultaneously, quickly, and then decide who's the, you know, what's the right fit?
Sorry, guys. I think my Wi-Fi dropped.
Yeah, you froze for a second. Did you catch the question, or shall I?
I caught half of it. So you were asking about developers looking for publishers. Could you repeat so I could?
Yeah. So let's say you have a developer like and said, okay, I'm not going to try and raise money. I want to work with publishers. I want to learn how they do this and see how it all kind of figures out. How does the process work in terms of, you know, presumably there's a lot of conversations happening there all the time. And it's a very, very fast moving sector. So you don't sort of get weeks or months to think about, you know, who's the best person for me, right? So what's the best way to navigate that process in terms of, you know, going out sort of super hard and making quick decisions?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think there are typically a lot of standard questions, and they're all about, depends on the goal of the team, right? So what I see is usually, of course, it's financial support. It's not necessarily the top priority. Sometimes I hear ambitious teams that I really enjoy working with who are like, hey, we want to make a hit, we want to make another hit, or we want to do something extraordinary, we want to change something, and we really need strong partner. So I really prefer to understand the pain points, to understand the challenges the team has, or it could be like one person, like a solo developer. So the market is super competitive, but it's actually small, right? So how many publishers do we have? Like 30, maybe 40 now. I don't know. They're popping up from time to time. Again, like it really depends on the goal of the team and what they look for. Like, yeah, where do they want to be in, let's say, a year? Unfortunately, I don't see this sort of like strategy often from the team. They sometimes can be just like, you know, focusing on some sort of short-term goals, which, in my opinion, it's really harder to achieve success in this case.
And John, you obviously got a lot of people through the doors. How do you, you know, when you have, you know, someone comes through, you think, you know, super strong, you know, really like the team, the game is really good. You guys get excited about it from a metrics and a monetization point of view. How do you sort of like, how do you get out in front, right? So it's almost like you've got 10 different VCs chasing the deal. How do you kind of differentiate yourself, or how do you stand out in front?
I mean, I think luckily in hyper casual, I don't think we're competing with VCs, right? Versus other game genres. I would say VCs are now competing with publishers, right? Because the VCs are having to move earlier and earlier as publishers are basically deploying publishing deals as a Trojan horse to M&A. But in hyper casual, you know, to Alina's point, that the main competitive point is against other publishers. So my advice to studios is actually to flip this conversation, right? Because actually what hyper casual publishers need to do is understand their publisher's business model. So I'll split it in two quite simply. So if you're a pre-revenue publisher, right, your goal is to capture as much market share as possible, which means as much revenue as possible, forsaking, you know, EBITDA profit, because your publisher will be trying to raise money, and also get top charts as a way of marketing their publisher to VCs. Versus if your publisher has done an IPO, then they're going to have a share price, and they're going to have investors who love revenue and love top chart games, but the thing they love the most is profitability. So I think it's really important that the developer understands their publisher's business model. And that goes down into some of the points you were talking about, Martin, in terms of the contract and some of the clauses. But I think it's this, from a lot of the conversations I'm having, that is actually what's driving some of this. And I agree with Noam. I think some of the earlier stage studios, it's just very strong developers, not strong business wise, and there's voyeurism around raising money. But I think a lot of studios now, they're starting to understand that they actually, it's not they want to break free of publishing. It's just when I often talk to them about self-publishing, actually, if you get to the root of what it is, it comes down to this sort of word of transparency. And what they mean by that, quite simply, is some of them are quite smart and they can do the math on like the number of installs they've had, but because they don't have access to like the ad network data, for example, they know something is not adding up between the number of installs they're getting and the revenue versus their royalty check. So I think it's actually this that is now driving this quest from some of the studios now to either, raise money and go it alone, or actually if they realize that self-publishing is quite a big technical undertaking, because you need like BI, you need like creative tools, you need some pretty solid UA monetization people. That's when they're looking for, an alternative to a classic publishing deal. So a slightly different answer to your to your question, but I think it's something that does actually need to be discussed a little bit more openly now, versus just in like Discord and like private chat. And I'm sure post COVID, in hopefully when the conferences are back up and running, over a beer at conferences.
Yeah, no, it's interesting, and it's back to the thing. It would be, some say it could be a hyper casual charter or a publishing charter, whatever, in terms of like these are the right things to do, and this is how we keep everyone on side. I mean, my personal take is like, if you're setting out, then raising, it's like, what are you raising for? Are you going to raise $250,000 because you don't want to go to a publisher because you think you're not going to get a good deal, or you're not going to understand the deal, whatever? It's like, I guess my advice would probably be, go and do it and learn, and not, you're not selling your soul here. And plus it's only on one title, and if it's if it's successful, then great, and if not, you've got other titles, right? It's not like you're investing 2 or 3 years of your life into this. You might be 2 or 3 months of it. You'll learn a shitload, and then you can always apply that. And maybe you think, like, in terms of the fit here, the publishing side is really good, and maybe you're able to negotiate better terms for for different games you have, if you've got that kind of type of relationship. And if not, then you've learned. And you're probably more investable as a business if you've actually got some kind of, some runs on the board anyway, right? You can actually say, yeah, we did this game with these guys, we learned a lot, now we'd like to raise some money, and then we're either going to develop hyper casual or the kind of longer LTV genre games from that. So to my mind, it's really just about understanding the different options, and seeking advice and talking to people. What's the what's the scene like on the ground now, in terms of obviously I've had loads of success. There's lots of a much bigger sort of scene talked about locally, and so on. How are you guys handling it? Is there a good kind of support network for younger ambitious developers coming through?
That was for me, right?
Yeah.
The question. Okay. Yeah, actually, there's a lot of support, and now we are in a situation where the publishers are kind of competing, to work with the development studios, because the more development studios they have under their umbrella, the bigger also the chances for them to publish more games, right? And I think all of the publishers are trying hard to improve, their cooperation with the studios, their guidance, coaching, and everything. And for us, what was most instrumental was we talked with several publishers before deciding which is the right publisher with us. And also we tested, before Tie Day, we tested with a few publishers, not only with Crazy Labs. But that was also great learning experience for us to check whether we click with that publisher and the method they work, so to see if we are good fit. And the negotiating talks are one thing, but actually when you go through the experience, then you can decide if that's the right publisher for you or not. For example, a few of the publishers that we worked with were just no hands-off approach. We do what we do. We will send marketing materials. They will just run them through ad networks, and we will get the result, get no feedback, no learnings. That doesn't help us at all. We need to learn from the process. It's okay, we failed, but now we need feedback, and we can only learn from that,
Yeah, so so it's basically like if you've got the right DNA of a publisher, and presumably then if you've got it and it works well, then you would. I mean, okay, while some people may choose to go and go off on their own and put in place all the lessons, but presumably you get people going back, and if you feel like you've had a good, open, honest, transparent relationship with the publisher, then why not go back and just continue the relationship, because you know exactly what you're getting, and you're always going to have to do the cost of, like, if I have to go and hire a UA person, team, monetization team, build all the tools and so on. I mean, the motor's set quite high. The good publishers obviously have a lot of this stuff in house and are very good at what they do. So presumably, if you get the kind of right relationship, and it's something you may replicate, it becomes almost a financial decision. You say, am I going to have to go and raise capital, whether it's debt or equity capital? I'm going to hire a bunch of people. It's almost like, what do you want to be remembered for? Do you want to try and, is everyone trying to build something that they can sell? And certainly all the M&A data shows that the companies that are getting sold are the companies that are self-publishing. So, but not everyone wants the sort of the tech crunch headline, right? Some people will be very happy with knocking out really good games, making a good living, but not having to go raise venture capital and go completely kind of shit or bust for the big exit, right? World's a big place.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, for us, that was the starting motto as well. I mean, when we get to say, we are mostly, we are game developers, and we know how to create great games, but we don't know how to sell them. And from that instance, we knew that we need to find a publisher that we're going to work with, even before we start, and not just shooting the blind. And even now, in the position where we are, even now that we're branching into casual, we know even on that side that we are looking for a perfect partner for that title that we are working on, that we want to test. Because for us, maybe this has something to do with location. For example, Gökhan, Turkey, that landscape is much different. The talent pool is amazing. But we as a studio are coming from Macedonia, where the talent pool is really small. And especially when it comes to publishing, to people that are talented for user acquisition, games marketing, stuff like that. So first, we need to see if here we can first, do we have the talent, and can we attract the talent to go into self-publishing? And another thing is, if we go that route, at the moment, for a young studio as us, we will be defocused from what we do best. And probably that publishing team will need to be 2 times at least the size of our development team, just to try and publish on our own. For us, at this point, it doesn't make sense to go on our own.
Right. Interesting. So, and then, Gökhan, you're doing everything in house then, right? So you've got I had a look at the jobs page and so on. You're hiring across all different disciplines, because you obviously got like a fairly clear idea of, like, who you want to be, the sort of games you want to build, right?
But it is really hard to find the real talent, because if you are not working with the talented people, you will lose money. And if you will lose money, it will be really good to work with a publisher, because publishers can win a lot of money with because they have talent, they have automation tools, they have everything. So if I'm agreed with no. So if you don't, if you are not working with talented people, if you are not create automation tools, good design, good publishing team, it will be good to work with publishers.
So and hopefully we're sort of coming out the other side now. But in terms of COVID and the ability to sort of look at people on a more remote basis and build remote team stuff. Obviously, people have got good at that. Are you thinking about specifically like sort of in-person, local talent in Turkey, or are you starting to sort of like to spread the web to get the right people no matter where they're located?
Actually, we are working from office right now. It is part-time, but we are working. But in the future, I think it will be great because we can work with talent people abroad. I think Europe, something like that, or United States, because we can't acquire that people because we have in Turkey. But it will be great to working abroad with that talented people.
Yeah, certainly from our point of view, it's completely changed. The idea of hiring was like, I particularly was very kind of fixed and how it looks and where people need to be, and wouldn't even consider people outside of a a certain location. And I like to think we're sort of eating our own dog food now, and we've hired people remote. We have a network of freelancers doing different things, and it's just completely changed mindsets. So in terms of so no, I'm back to you. I mean, obviously you just hit the 100 million club, right? There's not very many of you guys around. Did you get a gold watch in the post that day?
Not yet. Probably we'll put some on the walls when we get back to the office. But yeah, it's amazing feeling. It's amazing feeling.
That's great. How did you? Have you got some sort of clickers or counters, whatever, that you were watching and come through, or did the guys let you know, or how did you wake up to the news?
Sorry?
How did you wake up to the news that you'd got through that milestone?
Oh, well, we didn't, really wake up to the news. I mean, we are every day, first thing what we do is just check the KPIs and what's going on a daily basis and the number of daily downloads. So we just knew the day that Friday is the day when we're gonna hit 100 million. So there was not much anticipation. Yeah.
What did you do on Friday night? What did you and the team do on Friday night?
Nothing much, to be honest. We kinda got used that this thing gonna be large. Even ironically, before starting to work on that idea, when we were prototyping and fighting to get a game throughout the gates. That's the first goal you have, to get a game out of the gates, because if it's published, it's going to be profitable. It doesn't matter how much, it's going to be big for a small studio. But we never even, dared imagine that the first published game that we're gonna reach this milestone. And ironically, also when it got published, we didn't got much time to celebrate, because the next several weeks again were like this non-stop crunching, to get it to a good state and where it should be for a proper launch.
Cool. Well, fantastic achievement. Congrats again on that. So, anyone got any views on the? We've kind of circulated the idea about the sort of the UA monetization flywheel, all the different changes coming in terms of tracking, and that you had loads of different pundits and schools of thought around. This is going to be the death of hyper casual, or it's going to make no difference at all because broad, targeting is really broad. Any kind of view from the trenches, if you like, in terms of any sort of longer term or structural changes, or is it business as usual?
Do you mean in terms of how we do UA, or just?
Yeah, I guess sort of just like, I mean, not into any kind of specifics or numbers, but just the how you're doing it, what the approach is. Has anything sort of had to really change, or is it
So yeah, I mean for us, I mean again, like we've known this is coming for a long time, and for me it's been no different to like if you go back to desktop and basically killing the cookie there. We're just going through a similar iteration now in mobile in terms of how we can target an attribute. from what we're seeing as a as a group, with everything from sort of mid-core to hyper casual, for us, we're very well prepared and it's business as usual. I think at an industry level, it's kind of interesting. I kind of see two camps, because on the one hand, you've had some very aggressive and large acquisitions in M&A and hyper casual pre iOS 14.5. Obviously, Zynga with Rollic, Voodoo closed yet another investment round. On the other side, to your point, Martin, you've also got a lot of skeptics that for me don't really understand hyper casual, but have been saying for the 5th year running now that hyper casual is going to die, and I think they missed the point. I think what you're seeing now in hyper casual is unrelated to iOS 14.5. I just think hyper casual is so mature as a business now. It's like a $5-6 billion industry. So I'm seeing just some great innovation now from a bit like Noam's journey, in terms of developers coming from casual, not into hyper casual, but coming out with like really great, I don't like the word hybrid, but they're taking inspiration from, maybe simulation from hyper casual, maybe upgrading the sort of classic half screen merge board to like full screen. So if you look at like James and the team at Skunkworks, for example, with Merge Friends, a couple of Lions recent releases, I think for me, that's where the real innovation is going, is these studios that have got the development power, the art power to actually take an idea and technically home it in somewhere that's not classic hyper casual, that's not necessarily casual, but deliver a game that's got very, very strong ARPU LTV to it. It gets you out of this endless prototype CPI chase of hyper casual, and takes you on a very nice path just to making really fun but profitable games. So I think that that's going to continue regardless of what's happening on the UA attribution side. For me, the most exciting thing, if you're talking about the distribution side, specifically for the people listening in hyper casual, for me, it's TikTok. Like, that people just aren't talking about now the power of TikTok, not just for ideation and, hey, I saw a cool video on TikTok, let's make a game of it, but for actual distribution. So our recent hit Shoe Race, that was number 1 on iOS US, like number 1 in 10 countries. We basically scaled that in a week with 50% of those installs coming from TikTok. So we basically broke the mold versus this classic, test on Facebook feed, scale it. So actually, for me, I'm really excited about the power of TikTok and how it's changing like hyper casual distribution.
Yeah, I definitely heard that a few times. I didn't realize that that half of the spend had gone on it and had been that successful. But yeah, I mean, I
didn't say half of the spend. I said half of the installs.
Read into that what you will.
Yeah.
That is that's really that's great to hear. And then Gökhan, in terms of your kind of strategies and stuff, has anything sort of particularly changed? The business as usual? Anything that you could you feel you can share?
Actually, we didn't plan anything. We want to see some results first. But I agreed with John. TikTok is really great asset for us. Our user acquisition strategy will use TikTok lastly.
And are they there? I mean, maybe one for Alina. Like, in terms of the smaller studios and stuff, is the TikTok infrastructure kind of well enough evolved for the sort of like self-serve smaller guys? Have they built all of that in yet, or is it really only applicable for the larger guys, and they're sort of presumably working on the rest of the infrastructure?
Yeah, that's a good question. Honestly speaking, I don't hear that much understanding yet about TikTok power so far. So that's a good to point this out for smaller teams or less experienced teams. Overall, in terms of Martin, what you were saying about in terms of UA and in terms of actual like what's happening, like it's really more. I don't believe as well that it's gonna just disappear, because the market is too huge, and it's all about, there will be definitely tools coming up maybe from every single provider ad network to solve this, and there is no targeting in hyper casual. So I think it really is just a matter of time, and I think it's also the matter of time of the genre being some sort of like modifying itself. In terms of the like battles around it, like about what's gonna be you know, trendy or less trendy. Yeah, I guess it's all like, yeah, I wanted to mention one point that what I see is that the teams that like smaller teams, they don't really understand the depth around user acquisition. They don't really understand maybe that much details as they could if they start to partner with a bigger partner or bigger publisher. As soon as they really release a couple of games, then it makes more sense to them how it works specifically. And I often talk to teams that are not too experienced enough, so they really are like, you know, a little bit scared and afraid of asking these questions, like what's gonna happen with hyper casual, what's gonna happen with our game if we publish it, how it is affecting, why are we guys testing on Android, because, you know, like I hear this a lot happening now in hyper casual. So yeah, those would be some thoughts on that regard.
Cool. So I see the time is it's 4:30 here. I'm not sure if there's a moderator around how we're doing for time, whether we want to keep going or whether we want to maybe open up for a bit of Q&A. Is anyone listening backstage? No. Should we just keep going till we get told to stop?
Yeah, I think so. Like,
yeah, let's do that. So cool. So I guess back to the kind of investability. I mean, have you seen any kind of anyone seen any investors sort of like, you know, put off by the recent changes or playing a bit of wait and see? I mean, to my mind, it doesn't look like it's really held up any kind of investor activity. Maybe it was just all backed up in the pipe. I don't know, John, you're probably closest to, you know, to some of those conversations where
I mean, again, it's just part of a due diligence process. I think, you know, I've had a few calls with VCs that they just want to understand it. They're not threatened by it, but it's just like any, you know, any technology change. They just want to understand the impact it's going to have on like a particular, you know, game genre. So, you know, for me, the most simplest threat is if your game relies on like really pinpointing a specific person, you know, like for an IP-based game, then, you know, on paper, that's the most likely to be affected. But then again, there's been 2-3 really great ad tech companies that raised, you know, pretty solid seed rounds about a year ago with, you know, iOS 14.5 in mind. You know, you've got Kaizen and DataSeat as two examples that, you know, again, make it a lot easier. So generally for VCs, I haven't seen. The main kind of anecdotal stuff I've heard from VCs is actually they've got more capital to deploy than ever. The challenge is it's not like there's suddenly like this, you know, 2 to 5x number of studios around, or the quality of studios has gone up 2 to 5x. So what I'm actually seeing is if you're a very solid studio, now has actually been like never a better time to raise money, because there's so much competition that you're seeing, you know, much more favorable valuations for your studio, because, you know, it's just ridiculous. And then if you look at the publishers as well, you know, this is also an interesting battle, because, you know, forget your classic publishing deal, you've also got publishers now, you know, with access to very cheap capital that are now looking to invest in these studios at an earlier stage to outmaneuver the VCs. You know, we've done a couple of these recently, and it's a challenge for VCs because they're having to get earlier and earlier, and they're not used to, you know, some of these VCs that are writing huge checks, they're not used to operating at kind of pre-seed round. And to Noam's point, you know, there's some great gaming VCs that really understand gaming, but there's also some that don't have a clue about gaming, and all they can really bring is a check. So yeah, for me, it's you know, it's such a great time to be a mobile game studio right now, regardless of your genre. There's just so many opportunities and ways that you can fund your studio.
Yeah, I saw even today. Actually, I saw on an email newsletter I got. So you had Octopus Ventures in the UK are now looking to hire hire an associate in to focus on gaming. So they're really well-known, well-regarded VCs. Obviously, just like I think a lot of these guys are saying, we need to have a story in gaming. There's a lot going on. Whereas you probably remember like 4 or 5 years ago, the idea of like VCs in gaming was like there were very, very few people who understood it, very few people who you could get to do it. It's all that mentality of it's a hits business. We don't invest in a hits business, and how how that market looks now is just very, very different. So yeah, I think it sounds like there are a lot of options. And I guess, and this is something we always advocate for, is just like go out and educate yourself. There are a lot of good resources out there, and just figure out what the best fit for your company is as well. So we've got a couple of questions here I've just seen in the chat. Okay, first one. What could be the end goal for VCs investing in hyper-casual developers? What's their exit strategy? So who's going to buy a hyper-casual developer, and why?
Yeah, I mean, you've got the obvious option, which is if you look at Voodoo, if you look at Lion, if you look at BoomBit, the obvious option is you've got that great relationship with a publisher. You've had a few hits together, and it's basically then just a maths question, right? We're paying you X amount per month already. We love working with you. Let's join forces and just agreeing on a valuation. So I think that's the obvious one. I think the second reason I've already mentioned is there's a couple raising right now who've been very successful in hyper casual, but they're raising to do hyper casual plus casual. So therefore, your exit strategy, if you push into casual, is, really, pick a publisher or a much bigger casual studio that would acquire you because you've got a hugely successful hit game with lots of MAU and revenue. So I think those are the two most obvious ones.
I would also like to add that I believe this is important to see if the developer have very smart strategy, starting with hyper casual, let's say, and then going in a long run with an investor or partner doing other type of more serious games which can deliver way more revenue regarding to the retention. Because in hyper casual, it's like it's a faster pace, right? You did a hit, you need to do one more, and then like I think this could be like, this is what I see as well, like as a smarter way of achieving big successes, right? So again, depends on the ambitious, but in my opinion, that's what I find very aggressive and worth paying attention to. Again, I do think it's super competitive, and also wanted to refer to Naum's point about competition of publishers at the moment, which is also making this easier for developers to fundraise or find any sort of support in that case, because now it's competition, really, like who's gonna win the talented developer.
Cool. And so last question from our apparently very active attendees. Would anyone invest in a studio that have never published a game with a publisher, or a studio that never published a hit game, that only tested prototypes so far?
This is a harder one, I think, because really everybody wants to have metrics, right? Everybody wants to have something. I'm not saying it's a no. I think it really depends on the potential of the studio, and it also depends on what type of investment we are talking about. Are we talking about monthly retainers? Are we talking about paper prototype? Or are we talking about like actual solid investments? So yeah, it would be really hard to prove some sort of success, because there has to be something. Maybe it has to be like some sort of like a trial. Well, there has to be definitely a chemistry and a good connection with this type of potential partnership. So yeah, I think it's more tricky. And what I see is that literally everybody is looking for some sort of data, because that's how you actually generate money.
Yeah. Sorry.
Oh, no, I'm good.
No, unless it's an established team, that's really, let's say, made out of all-stars, I don't think anyone would invest in a studio that haven't released the game, because you need to know the potential first, and how do you know the potential? By looking at metrics, and what the metrics say, the studio has not released a game so far, so it's not a smart investment, obviously, unless you're the publisher that works with the studio. You realize the potential, only then you can realize the potential, and you invest in the studio. To just reiterate, I would see this, who would invest in a hyper casual studio, let's say studio that has a track record. I see this as the 3 stepping stones. The first stepping stone would be the prototype. And then when the publisher is confident in your skills and, let's say, process, you might get to the point where you are offered a minimum monthly guarantee, which is much bigger deal, and it's covering your monthly burn rate. And after that, if you have a proven track record, you get to few hits to them. The only reasonable investor I see then would be, publishers, because as also Alina said, the landscape now is much different. The landscape is such that the publishers are fighting for development studios, and then makes sense for a publisher to want to buy you out, so you are now exclusively and for sure just working with them and not going to the competitors.
Cool. And then Alina, I think you just spotted one last question about, let me just check in the feed here, ways to get in touch with VCs. How open are they in sharing their portfolio of investments? I don't know if anyone's got any pearls on that.
I mean, the best way is always to get an introduction, because it will fast track your response. I mean, a lot of them, like if you go to like Makers or Play or LVP, Transcends, Convoy, they've all got on their website a little bit about their investment thesis and some of their portfolio companies that you can see, and they've all got kind of contact pages as well. So there's no harm in a cold email or picking them through LinkedIn, but obviously the best way is just to get an introduction through someone in your network.
It's also important to be prepared to talk to investors. They are fine with cold connections and communications, and of course growing the network, and that is important, but it's good to be prepared to the potential questions they will ask, because the first impression is the first impression. There is a lot of information in the investment scene and gaming scene and hyper casual scene on how to do the proper pitches, how to actually pitch the game, how to pitch the studio. So if it's about like newbies who never done that, so it's good to feel mature and be passionate about what you guys are talking about your project and what do you want to achieve, because I've seen so many amazing projects with really not the best pitches. So that would be also important to keep in mind.
Yeah, I think there are a lot of really great resources. And we look at some of the stuff that Joachim Ackeren's done on elite game developers and so on, lots of templates and, pitch decks and board meetings. And, we've done some stuff on UA templates and things as well. So there's a lot of really good resources out there. So it's almost like if they set the bar sort of fairly low, right? People will, of course they're going to take cold outreaches, whatever, probably a bit more seriously when there's a lot of money chasing deals. But yeah, there's no excuse really for not being prepared in terms of, having done your research, how to pitch people, what sort of questions you're going to get asked. Cool, guys. Thank you very much indeed for your time. I think we are now out of time, but thank you very much indeed for taking part. Always some interesting topics, and hopefully that's been of value to everyone tuning in as well.
Thanks, Martin. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks a lot, guys.
Bye-bye.
Cheers, Martin.
Cheers.
Cheers. Bye-bye.